The order exists before anyone sees it. It is already complete when it arrives. Typed, stamped, copied, routed. It does not ask to be improved. It does not invite interpretation. It carries no visible urgency, because urgency has been processed out of it. What remains is clarity, sequence, finality. It moves through rooms designed for its movement, across desks that have held thousands like it, through hands trained to recognize its shape and weight. No one pauses long enough to wonder why it sounds the way it does. Its phrasing follows patterns learned early and reinforced daily. Short sentences, defined actions, precise timing, nothing that suggests doubt. The paper is handled carefully, not because it is fragile, but because it is official. Corners aligned, margins respected, ink unchallenged. It is logged, acknowledged, and passed along without conversation. Each transfer reduces it further, stripping it of context until only instruction remains. There is no discussion because discussion is not required. The order has already been discussed elsewhere, at levels far removed from its execution. Here, it is simply received. Receipt is enough. Voices repeat its contents exactly, not louder, not softer. The same words, the same emphasis. Repetition is a form of confirmation. Each time the order is spoken, it becomes more real, more fixed. What was once a decision is now a process. Time bends around it. Schedules adjust without complaint. Existing plans are revised without explanation. The order does not interrupt the system. The system makes space for it. Those who read it understand their role instantly, not because it is explained, but because it does not need to be. The language presumes familiarity. It assumes obedience. It assumes capability. It assumes that compliance is the default state. No one asks where it originated. That question is irrelevant now. Origin belongs to the past. The order belongs to the present. It moves downward, step by step, losing nothing, gaining authority with each descent. The further it travels, the less personal it becomes. By the time it reaches those who will act on it, it no longer feels like a decision made by people. It feels like a condition, like weather. There are no annotations, no warnings in the margins, no adjustments for circumstance. The order does not acknowledge the environment it will enter. It does not account for friction, delay, or deviation. It assumes the world will align itself accordingly, and because the system has been built to make that assumption true, it usually does. The order is folded, unfolded, read again. Not to question it, but to ensure accuracy. Accuracy is the only responsibility left. Precision replaces judgment. Correctness replaces understanding. Once confirmed, it is set in motion. Not dramatically, not urgently, simply activated. By the time anyone might sense what it will become, it is already too late to stop it. The structure that receives the order has been refined over years to do one thing well: transmit intent without distortion. It is a vertical arrangement of roles and responsibilities, each clearly bounded, each defined less by initiative than by position. Movement within it is predictable. Information flows in one direction. Confirmation flows back the same way, reduced to numbers, timestamps, acknowledgements. Rooms are organized to reflect this logic. Desks face the same direction. Documents are stacked according to priority, not content. Conversations follow formal openings and formal closures. Even disagreement, when permitted, has a prescribed shape. But this order does not enter a space where disagreement is expected. It arrives at a level where interpretation is unnecessary. The language has already been standardized, stripped of ambiguity by doctrine and repetition. Every phrase corresponds to a known action. Every action corresponds to a designated unit. The system does not require creativity to function. It requires alignment. Each layer receives the order with the same procedural calm. It is read once for comprehension, once for verification. Any uncertainty is resolved not by questioning intent, but by consulting manuals written to anticipate uncertainty. The manuals do not ask why, they explain how. Authority is embedded not in the individuals who pass the order along, but in the process itself. No single person owns the instruction long enough to feel responsible for its outcome. Responsibility is diffused, distributed across the structure until it becomes abstract. The hierarchy is efficient. It eliminates hesitation. It prevents delay. It ensures that nothing personal interferes with execution. Each role exists to remove friction, not to introduce judgment. When the order is relayed, it is not framed as a choice. It is framed as a requirement. Language reinforces this. Verbs are declarative. Conditions are fixed. Alternatives are absent. There is no space left for interpretation because interpretation is a risk. Training reinforces this logic early. Personnel learn to separate understanding from compliance. Understanding is useful but optional. Compliance is mandatory. The system rewards those who execute cleanly, not those who question quietly. As the order descends, it passes through levels designed to absorb complexity. At each stage, details are refined, responsibilities narrowed. What begins as a broad instruction becomes a series of precise tasks. Each task appears manageable. Each task appears logical in isolation. No one sees the entire picture. No one is expected to. The structure assumes that the whole is coherent because it was assembled at the top. Trust replaces visibility. The absence of contradiction is taken as proof of correctness. Communication channels remain open, but only for confirmation. Reports flow upward, confirming readiness, compliance, alignment. They do not carry concern. Concern has no formal category. The environment itself reinforces obedience. Uniforms erase individuality. Titles replace names. Rituals reinforce hierarchy. Every interaction reminds participants where they stand relative to the order. Time pressure is institutional, not emotional. Deadlines are enforced not by urgency, but by schedule. Delays are logged, not argued. Adjustments are made within parameters already approved. Those closest to execution receive the order last, when it is no longer an instruction, but a sequence. Their task is not to evaluate feasibility, but to perform accurately. The system assumes feasibility by definition. If the order exists, it must be possible. There is confidence in this assumption, built from past successes. The structure has worked before. It has absorbed errors, adapted quietly, and continued functioning. This history reinforces trust in the process, not in any specific outcome. As the order settles into place, the system reaches a state of readiness. Everything aligns. Personnel are positioned. Resources are allocated. Timelines are synchronized. No alarms sound. No tension is acknowledged. From within the structure, the situation appears stable, controlled, properly managed. The danger is not visible here. It has been filtered out by design. Execution begins without announcement. There is no moment that marks the transition from preparation to action. The order does not require one. It has been active since the moment it was acknowledged. What follows is simply its continuation. Movements occur according to schedule. Not earlier, not later. Units align themselves with reference points already established. Timetables are checked, not questioned. Synchronization is confirmed through brief exchanges that contain no interpretation, only verification. Each element performs its function exactly as assigned. There is no improvisation because none is authorized. Actions unfold in the sequence prescribed, each dependent on the previous step being completed precisely. Deviation would introduce uncertainty, and uncertainty is treated as error. Communication remains formal and minimal. Messages are short, standardized, and confirmatory. They report status, not conditions. They indicate progress, not assessment. Silence between transmissions is not concern, it is efficiency. The environment responds unevenly, but the system does not register this as significant. Variance exists outside the structure, not within it. The order accounts only for compliance. Anything beyond that lies outside its scope. Timing becomes the central measure of success. Every action is judged against the clock. Early execution creates misalignment. Late execution creates disruption. Correct execution exists only within a narrow window defined in advance. Those carrying out the order do not see it as a whole. They interact with fragments, specific instructions tied to specific moments. Their awareness is local. Their responsibility is bounded. The order does not ask them to consider outcomes, only execution. Equipment is deployed as specified. Quantities match requisitions. Positions match diagrams. Distances match measurements taken earlier, under different conditions. The fidelity to instruction is exact. When minor obstacles appear, they are addressed only insofar as protocol allows. Adjustments are mechanical, not adaptive. There is no escalation unless thresholds are crossed. The thresholds are high. Reports continue to flow upward, indicating adherence. Each confirmation reinforces the assumption that the order is functioning as intended. The system interprets compliance as success. There is no space for hesitation. The structure has removed it. Training ensures that response is automatic. Decision-making has been centralized far from this moment. Here there is only implementation. Coordination creates the appearance of control. Multiple actions align, converge, and complete in the expected sequence. From within the system, this alignment feels reassuring. Complexity has been reduced to routine. No one stops to reconsider. There is nothing to reconsider. The order has been validated by its existence and reaffirmed by its execution. As the final elements fall into place, the system records completion, not outcome, completion. The distinction is embedded in the structure. What has been done is correct because it has been done correctly. The order moves forward, intact, carrying with it assumptions that remain untested. The first indications do not arrive as alarms. They appear as discrepancies so small they fit comfortably within tolerance. A delay measured in seconds. A signal weaker than anticipated. A response that arrives in the correct format but carries less clarity than expected. Each deviation is noted, logged, and set aside. None are sufficient on their own to justify alteration. The order does not acknowledge deviation. It was not written to adapt. Its authority lies in its fixed nature. Change would require interruption, and interruption is itself a failure state. As execution continues, the environment asserts itself more clearly. Conditions diverge from assumptions embedded in the instruction. Distances stretch. Timing compresses. The margin for correction narrows. Yet the structure continues to interpret events through the lens of procedure. Confusion arises not from chaos, but from contradiction. Reports indicate compliance, yet outcomes begin to drift. Indicators remain nominal while effects suggest otherwise. The system registers this as incomplete data, not error. Requests for clarification move upward along established channels. They are framed carefully, stripped of implication. Language avoids challenge. The order is restated in response, unchanged. Restatement is treated as resolution. The flaw is now present, but unnamed. It exists in the gap between instruction and reality. The structure has no vocabulary for this gap. Doctrine accounts for failure of execution, not failure of assumption. As the situation evolves, local awareness increases. Those closest to the effects recognize misalignment, but recognition does not equate to authority. Their observations remain informal, unrecorded, or translated into neutral terms that lose urgency as they ascend. The order continues to drive action forward. Timelines advance. Checkpoints are crossed because they exist on the schedule. Each completed phase reduces the possibility of reversal. Momentum becomes a substitute for validation. Attempts to adapt occur within permitted boundaries. Minor adjustments are made that preserve the form of the order, while altering its application only superficially. These adjustments create the appearance of responsiveness without addressing the core problem. Communication density increases. More messages, more confirmations, more acknowledgements. The volume of information rises, but its content remains constrained. The system becomes louder, not clearer. At higher levels, the data appears consistent. Compliance metrics are met. Reports indicate progress. The structure interprets this coherence as stability. The absence of explicit failure reinforces confidence. Meanwhile, the effects compound. Small discrepancies interact. Timing errors align. Resources arrive where they are expected, but not when they are needed. The sequence remains intact, but its logic erodes. There is a moment when reversal is still possible, but it is undefined. It exists outside formal procedure. No mechanism identifies it. No authority recognizes it as legitimate. The order does not change. It cannot. To change it would be to admit that its assumptions were flawed. The structure is not designed for that admission, so the system continues, enforcing precision where adaptation is required, and discipline where judgment might have intervened. By the time the failure becomes visible, it is no longer emerging, it is underway. Collapse does not announce itself as an event, it arrives as a condition. Systems that were aligned begin to interfere with one another. Movements that once complemented now conflict. Timing that once synchronized now collides. The order continues to generate action, but the actions no longer produce coherence. They produce accumulation. Loss emerges first as inefficiency. Resources are consumed faster than projected. Positions are reached but cannot be held. Outputs meet specifications while failing to achieve effect. The structure records these as anomalies, not as signals. There is no single point of failure. There is no decisive moment. The order unravels through compliance. Each unit performs correctly. Each action meets its requirement. Together, they create a result no one planned for, but everyone contributed to. The environment absorbs the impact unevenly. Some areas experience overload. Others fall silent. Communication persists, but meaning thins. Messages confirm actions already rendered irrelevant by preceding steps. The order moves faster than understanding. Scale becomes apparent only after containment fails. What was local becomes systemic. What was manageable becomes distributed. The structure responds by reinforcing itself. More confirmation, stricter adherence, tighter sequencing. Control is intensified precisely where flexibility is required. Loss is registered without ceremony. Numbers replace detail. Absence is logged as delay. Destruction is recorded as depletion. The language remains intact, even as its referents disappear. No individual action appears catastrophic. Each decision aligns with instruction. Each report reflects accuracy. The collapse emerges from accumulation, not deviation. There is no violation to identify, no breach to correct. Attempts to stabilize occur automatically. Contingencies activate, but they were designed for different failures. They assume interruption, not persistence. They address disruption, not inevitability. Their activation consumes remaining capacity without altering trajectory. The order continues to demand completion. Milestones are reached because they exist. Deadlines are met because they are enforced. The system measures success by adherence, even as adherence deepens the outcome. At the periphery, operations cease not by command but by exhaustion. Capacity erodes. Redundancy fails. Replacement arrives too late to replace anything. The structure records these as terminal states, not as warnings. There are no counter orders. None are issued. Issuance would require acknowledgement of error. The system does not recognize error at this level. It recognizes only incomplete execution. As the collapse expands, the order remains present, unchanged. It is still referenced, still cited, still followed where possible. Its authority persists, even where its relevance has ended. What remains is consequence without agency, action without purpose, procedure without effect. When activity finally slows, it is not because the order has concluded, but because there is nothing left for it to move. The structure records cessation as completion. The order is closed. The failure is not discussed. Afterward, the system does not pause. Records are finalized in the same format they have always used. Dates are confirmed. Quantities are reconciled. Deviations are categorized according to existing codes, none of which capture what actually occurred. The order is archived alongside others that reached completion. Language adjusts subtly. References become indirect. The operation is mentioned less frequently, then only in aggregate. It is folded into broader summaries where individual outcomes dissolve into trends. The structure does not erase it. It absorbs it. There are reviews, but they are procedural. They examine adherence, timing, allocation. They confirm that instructions were transmitted correctly and executed as written. The absence of deviation is noted as evidence of discipline. Discipline remains a value. Responsibility does not surface because it has nowhere to settle. Each level can demonstrate compliance. Each function can produce documentation. The order, having been legal and official, requires no defense. Its existence justifies itself. Those who remain return to routine. Roles resume their familiar shape. New orders arrive, similar in form, different in detail. The process repeats without reference to the last outcome. Continuity is preserved. What was lost is not named directly. It appears only as adjusted capacity, revised projections, reduced availability. These are treated as variables, not consequences. The structure recalibrates without reflection. Silence follows not because there is nothing to say, but because nothing needs to be said. The system is intact. Its ability to function has not been questioned. One failure does not threaten a structure designed to survive many. Training materials are updated slightly. Language is refined. Thresholds are adjusted. These changes are not linked explicitly to the event. They exist as improvements, not responses. Time moves forward. Memory thins. The order becomes indistinguishable from others that pass through the same channels. Its specifics fade. Its effects persist only indirectly. Somewhere within the structure, the same assumptions remain in place. Authority still flows downward. Compliance is still measured. Completion is still recorded without regard for outcome. Another order is already moving. It will follow the same path. It will be received the same way, and the system will be ready for it.